The downtown streets buzzed with afternoon traffic as Hannah Johnson pedaled her worn mountain bike through the maze of cars. Her messenger bag bounced against her back, filled with legal documents that needed to reach the courthouse before closing time. At 24, she had learned to navigate the city's chaos with the skill of someone who couldn't afford to be late. Every delivery meant money for rent, groceries, and her grandmother's medication. The luxury sedan sat trapped in the middle of the intersection, its hazard lights blinking weakly against the bright afternoon sun. Inside, a man in an expensive suit clutched his chest, his face twisted in agony. His mouth moved frantically as he tried to call for help, but the windows were up and no one could hear his desperate pleas. Dozens of people walked past the car. Some glanced curiously at the expensive vehicle. Others checked their phones, but nobody stopped. The man's hands pressed against the glass, leaving smudged handprints as he tried to get someone's attention. His breathing became shallow and labored. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the pain in his chest intensified. Hannah slowed her bike as she approached the intersection. Something felt wrong. The way the car sat motionless while traffic moved around it caught her attention. She squinted through the tinted windows and saw movement inside. A man was bent forward, one hand on his chest, the other fumbling with what looked like his phone. She stopped her bike and walked closer. The man inside looked up at her with desperate eyes. His lips moved, forming the word help over and over. His face was pale and covered in sweat. Hannah's heart raced as she realized what was happening. "Hey," she called out, tapping on the window. "Are you okay?" The man shook his head frantically. He pointed to his chest and then to the door handle. Hannah pulled on the handle, but it was locked. She looked around at the crowd of people nearby. "This man needs help," she shouted to a group of business people waiting at the crosswalk. They looked over, but kept walking when the light changed. "Someone call 911. She yelled to a woman talking on her phone. The woman glanced over, shrugged, and continued her conversation as she walked away. Hannah felt panic rise in her chest. The man inside the car was getting worse. His breathing was becoming more difficult, and his skin was turning a grayish color. She had seen this before when her grandfather had his heart attack 3 years ago. This man was dying, and nobody cared enough to stop and help. She ran back to her bike and grabbed it by the frame. The metal was heavy in her hands, but adrenaline gave her strength. Without hesitation, she lifted the bike above her head and brought it down hard against the passenger side window. The safety glass spider webbed, but didn't break completely. She hit it again, and this time, the window shattered into small pieces that scattered across the leather seats. Several people stopped to stare, but no one moved to help. Hannah reached through the broken window and unlocked the door. The man inside was barely conscious, his breathing shallow and irregular. She had learned CPR during her brief time studying nursing before money ran out and she had to drop out of college. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, gently, shaking his shoulder. "I'm going to help you." The man's eyes fluttered open. "Can't breathe?" he whispered. Hannah quickly assessed the situation. She needed to get him out of the car and onto the ground to perform CPR properly. But first, she had to make sure his airway was clear and call for medical help. "Someone call 911 right now," she shouted to the growing crowd of onlookers. A teenage boy finally pulled out his phone and started dialing. She carefully helped the man lean back in his seat. His pulse was weak and irregular. His lips were starting to turn blue, which meant he wasn't getting enough oxygen. This was serious, and she had to act fast. How could so many people just walk by when someone was dying right in front of them? What kind of world do we live in where basic human kindness has become so rare? Don't you think we all have a responsibility to help each other in times of crisis? If you believe in the power of compassion and human connection, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments about what you would do in this situation. The man tried to speak again, but his words came out as barely audible whispers. Hannah leaned closer to hear him. "Thank you," he managed to say before his eyes closed. She checked for a pulse at his neck. Was there, but very weak. She needed to start chest compressions immediately. Carefully, she helped him slide out of the car and onto the pavement beside the vehicle. The crowd of people formed a circle around them, but still no one offered to help. Hannah positioned herself beside the man and placed her hands on his chest just below the breastbone. She had practiced this technique many times, but never in a real emergency. Taking a deep breath, she began the rhythmic compressions, counting out loud as she pushed hard and fast against his chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted, pressing down with all her strength. After 30 compressions, she tilted his head back and checked his airway before giving him 2 rescue breaths. The sirens were getting closer, but she couldn't wait for the paramedics. She continued the cycle of compressions and breaths, sweat dripping down her face as she worked to keep this stranger alive. Her arms burned with the effort, but she didn't stop. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the man coughed and his eyes opened slightly. He was breathing on his own again, though still very weak. Hannah sat back on her heels, exhausted but relieved. The paramedics arrived and immediately took over his care. They asked Hannah quick questions about what had happened and what she had done. She explained about breaking the window and performing CPR while they loaded the man onto a stretcher. "You saved his life," one of the paramedics told her. A few more minutes, and it would have been too late. As the ambulance drove away with sirens blaring, Hannah looked around at the scattered glass on the ground and her damaged bike. The crowd had dispersed, leaving her alone with the evidence of what had just happened. Her hands were shaking as the adrenaline wore off. She picked up her messenger bag and examined her bike. The frame was dented where she had used it to break the window, but it was still rideable. She had deliveries to make, and rent was due tomorrow. Life had to go on, even after saving someone's life. But as she pedaled away from the scene, she couldn't stop thinking about the man's desperate eyes and the way everyone else had simply walked past his car. She wondered if she would ever see him again, or if he would even remember what had happened once he recovered. What she didn't know was that the man she had saved was Michael Whitmore, CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the country. And he would definitely remember the young woman who had broken his car window and saved his life when no one else would help. Michael Whitmore opened his eyes to the steady beeping of machines and the antiseptic smell of the hospital. The cardiac care unit was quiet, except for the soft footsteps of nurses checking on patients throughout the night. His chest ached where they had placed the stents to open his blocked arteries, but he was alive. "Mr. Whitmore, you're awake," said Dr. Sarah Coleman, a cardiologist who had been monitoring his condition since the surgery. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Michael replied, his voice hoarse, "but grateful to be here." Dr. Coleman checked his chart and adjusted one of the 4 lines. "You're very lucky. You had what we call a widowmaker heart attack. The main artery to your heart was completely blocked. Without immediate CPR, you wouldn't have survived." Michael nodded slowly. The memories of the afternoon were still fuzzy, but he remembered the feeling of not being able to breathe in the panic when he realized he was trapped in his car. Then there was the young woman who had appeared at his window like an angel. "The woman who helped me," he said. "Do you know anything about her? I need to thank her." Dr. Coleman shook her head. "She left before the ambulance arrived. The paramedics said she was a young African-American riding a bike. That's all they knew. She didn't leave her name or contact information." Over the next 3 days, as Michael recovered in the hospital, he couldn't stop thinking about his mysterious savior. She had broken his car window without hesitation and performed CPR that saved his life. While dozens of people had walked past his car, she was the only one who stopped to help. His assistant, Olivia Torres, visited him daily with get-well flowers from various business associates and updates on company operations. Michael's heart attack had made the local news, focusing mainly on how the CEO of Whitmore Industries had suffered a medical emergency downtown. "Olivia, I need you to do something for me," Michael said on his 3rd day in the hospital. "I want to find the woman who saved my life." Olivia pulled out her tablet, ready to take notes. "What information do we have?" "Not much. She was young, maybe mid-20s, African-American, riding a mountain bike. She was wearing work clothes like she might have been making deliveries. She knew CPR and wasn't afraid to take action when everyone else just walked away." "I'll contact the local news stations," Olivia suggested. "They might be willing to help us find her." Michael shook his head. No media attention. I want to find her quietly. She didn't help me because of who I am or how much money I have. She helped because it was the right thing to do. I don't want to turn this into a publicity stunt." Olivia understood. In their years of working together, she had learned that Michael valued genuine connections over public relations opportunities. "I'll start by checking with local courier and delivery companies. If she was making deliveries, someone might know her." When Michael was finally discharged from the hospital, he returned to his penthouse apartment with strict orders to rest and avoid stress. But he couldn't rest knowing that someone had saved his life and disappeared without recognition. He spent his recovery time thinking about the split-second decision she had made to help a complete stranger. Olivia's investigation led her to several bike messenger services in the downtown area. Most companies were reluctant to share information about their employees, but she persisted. After a week of calls and visits, she found a small courier service that recognized the description. "Yeah, that sounds like Hannah," said Peter Rodriguez, the owner of Quick Delivery Services. "She's one of our part-time messengers. Works for us 3 days a week and has other jobs too. Real hardworking kid." Olivia felt a surge of excitement. "Is she working today?" "She's out on a delivery run. Should be back in about an hour." "Can I ask what this is about?" Olivia chose her words carefully. Someone she helped wants to thank her properly. When Hannah returned to the quick delivery office, Peter told her about the well-dressed woman who had been asking about her. Hannah felt a knot of worry in her stomach. She couldn't afford to lose this job, and she hoped she hadn't done something wrong. "Did she say what she wanted?" Hannah asked. "Just that someone wants to thank you for helping them." "She left her card and asked you to call." Hannah looked at the elegant business card. Olivia Torres, Executive Assistant, Whitmore Industries. The name Whitmore sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. The company address was in the financial district where she made deliveries sometimes. That evening, after finishing her shift at the restaurant where she worked as a server, Hannah sat in her small apartment with her grandmother, Grace Johnson. At 78, Grace was still sharp and wise, though her health had been declining over the past year. "Grandma, do you think I should call this number?" Hannah showed her the business card. Grace examined the card with her reading glasses. "Whitmore Industries. That's a big company, baby. What did you do to get their attention?" Hannah told her grandmother about the man in the car and how she had broken the window to save him. She had mentioned it briefly when it happened, but she hadn't made a big deal about it. To her, it was just the right thing to do. "And you think this might be connected to that man you helped?" Grace asked. "Maybe, but I don't understand why he would be looking for me. I didn't do anything special." Grace took her granddaughter's hands in her own weathered ones. "Child, you saved someone's life. That's not nothing. That's everything. You call that number tomorrow and see what they want. Sometimes good things happen to good people." The next morning, Hannah dialed the number on the business card. Olivia answered on the second ring and immediately asked if they could meet for lunch. Her excitement was obvious, and it made Hannah curious about what this was really about. They met at a small cafe near Hannah's apartment. Olivia was professionally dressed and clearly from a different world, but she was warm and friendly. She explained that her boss wanted to thank Hannah personally for helping him during a medical emergency. He had a heart attack in his car downtown last week. Olivia explained, "You broke his window and performed CPR. The doctor said you saved his life." Hannah felt relief wash over her. She had wondered about the man several times, hoping he had recovered. "Is he okay now?" "He's doing well, thanks to you. He had surgery to open blocked arteries, and he's recovering at home." "Got it. If you need me to pull out or analyze any other section, feel free to let me know. Thank you for coming." She shook his hand, noting how different he seemed from the desperate man she had pulled from the car. "I'm glad you're feeling better, Mr. Whitmore. Please call me Michael, and please come in." He gestured toward the living room, where he had arranged for coffee and pastries from the city's best bakery. They sat across from each other on comfortable leather chairs, the afternoon sunlight streaming through the large windows. Michael studied her face, trying to reconcile this poised young woman with the fierce guardian angel who had saved his life. "I owe you everything," he began. The doctors told me that without your quick thinking and CPR, I wouldn't have survived. You literally gave me my life back." Hannah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Anyone would have done the same thing. But they didn't, Michael said gently. There were dozens of people on that street, and you were the only one who stopped to help. That says something about who you are as a person. I couldn't just walk away and let someone die. My grandfather had a heart attack a few years ago, and I learned CPR after that. I never thought I'd actually need to use it. Michael leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about yourself, Hannah. Olivia mentioned you work several jobs." Hannah hesitated, unsure how much to share with this wealthy stranger. But something about his genuine interest encouraged her to open up. "I work for a courier service 3 days a week, and I wait tables at Romano's restaurant the other nights. I'm saving money to go back to school." "What do you want to study?" "I started a nursing program a few years ago, but I had to drop out when my grandmother got sick. Her medical bills and medications are expensive, and I needed to work time to help support us." Michael listened carefully, recognizing the weight of responsibility this young woman carried. He thought about his own privileged upbringing and the opportunities that had always been available to him. "Got it. Here's the excerpt. What kind of nursing interests you?" "Emergency medicine originally. I like helping people in crisis situations, but honestly, any nursing job would be good. It's stable work, and I could make enough money to take better care of my grandmother." "How long would it take you to finish the program?" "About 2 years if I went back full time, but I can't afford to stop working, so it would probably take longer doing it part time." Michael was quiet for a moment, processing what he had learned. This woman had saved his life while carrying financial burdens that would overwhelm most people. She had dreams and goals, but was sacrificing them to care for her family. "Hannah, I want to do something for you. It's the least I can do to show my gratitude." She immediately shook her head. "That's not necessary. I didn't help you expecting anything in return. I know that, and it's exactly why I want to help. You have the character and compassion that my company needs. I'd like to offer you a job at Whitmore Industries." Hannah stared at him in surprise. "Mr. Whitmore, Michael, I don't have experience in technology or business. I wouldn't know how to do that kind of work." "You'd learn. We have training programs for new employees, and I'd personally ensure you get the support you need. The position would pay 3 times what you're making now with your current jobs combined, they plus full health benefits for you and your grandmother." The offer was overwhelming. Hannah's mind raced with the possibilities. She could pay off her grandmother's medical debts, afford proper care for her condition, and maybe even start saving for school again. But it seemed too good to be true. "What kind of position?" she asked cautiously. "We'll start you in our community outreach department. You'd help coordinate our charitable programs and volunteer initiatives. Your nursing background and people skills would be valuable for organizing health fairs and medical assistance programs. Let me know if you'd like me to help further with this scene." It sounded perfect, almost like a dream job. But Hannah had learned to be skeptical of offers that seemed too good to be true. "Why would you do this for me?" Michael smiled. "Because you showed me something important about the kind of person I want to be and the kind of people I want around me. You acted with courage and compassion when it mattered most. Those are qualities that can't be taught." "I need some time to think about it," Hannah said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Michael stood and walked to his desk, returning with a folder. "Here's detailed information about the position, the salary, and the benefits package. Look it over and let me know when you're ready to decide." As Hannah prepared to leave, Michael walked her to the elevator. "There's no pressure, Hannah. Whatever you decide, I'll always be grateful for what you did. You gave me a chance to live longer and hopefully become a better person." In the elevator going down, Hannah clutched the folder containing information about a future she had never imagined possible. The offer was generous beyond anything she had ever dreamed of, but she wondered if she was qualified for such a position. That evening, she spread the documents across her small kitchen table while her grandmother prepared their simple dinner. The salary alone would change their lives completely. The health insurance would cover her grandmother's medications and provide access to better doctors. "What's all this, baby?" Grace asked, looking over Hannah's shoulder. Hannah explained the job offer, watching her grandmother's expression change from curiosity to amazement to concern. That's a lot of money, Grace said slowly. What does he want in return? He says nothing. He just wants to thank me for helping him. Grace sat down beside her granddaughter. Rich people don't usually give away jobs like this without expecting something. You be careful, child. But what if it's real, Grandma? What if this is our chance to finally get ahead instead of just surviving? Grace took her granddaughter's hands. You saved that man's life because it was the right thing to do. If he wants to help you now because it's the right thing to do, then maybe you should let him. But you go into this with your eyes open and your values intact. Hannah spent the next 2 days researching Whitmore Industries and reading about Michael Whitmore. The company had an excellent reputation for treating employees well and supporting community programs. Michael himself was known for his charitable work and ethical business practices. She called Olivia and accepted the position. Hannah's first day at Whitmore Industries began with an orientation session in the company's modern downtown headquarters. The building's glass facade gleamed in the morning sunlight, and the spacious lobby featured contemporary art and comfortable seating areas where employees gathered for informal meetings. Olivia met her at the security desk and helped her get her employee badge and access cards. Michael wanted to welcome you personally, but he's in meetings with the board of directors today. He asked me to make sure you have everything you need to get started. The community outreach department occupied an entire floor of the building with open workspaces designed to encourage collaboration. Large windows provided natural light and city views that made the environment feel energizing rather than confined. This is your workspace, Olivia said, leading Hannah to a desk equipped with a new computer, office supplies, and a small plant. And this is Rachel Williams, the Director of Community Outreach. She'll be your immediate supervisor. Rachel was a woman in her 50s with a warm smile and an instantly welcoming manner. She had worked for the company for over 15 years and clearly loved her job. Welcome to the team, Hannah. I've heard wonderful things about you. Over the next few hours, Rachel introduced Hannah to her new colleagues and explained the department's current projects. They organized health screenings for underserved communities, coordinated volunteer programs for local nonprofits, and managed scholarship funds for students pursuing careers in healthcare and technology. Your nursing background will be especially valuable for our health initiatives, Rachel explained as they reviewed upcoming projects. We're planning a series of free health fairs in neighborhoods that lack adequate medical services. Your experience would help us design programs that actually meet people's needs. Hannah felt excited about the work. It combined her interest in healthcare with her desire to help people, and it seemed like a natural fit for her skills and values. The salary was exactly what Michael had promised, and the benefits package included full medical coverage for her grandmother. During her lunch break, she called Grace to share how the morning had gone. Her grandmother was pleased, but still cautiously optimistic about this dramatic change in their circumstances. Just remember who you are, baby, Grace said. Don't let all that money and fancy office make you forget where you came from. I won't, Grandma. This job is about helping people, just like we've always tried to do. That afternoon, Hannah attended her first team meeting to discuss the upcoming health fair. The event would provide free blood pressure screenings, diabetes testing, and basic health education for residents of a low-income neighborhood across town. We need someone to coordinate with the volunteer nurses and make sure we have all the medical supplies we need, Rachel said, looking directly at Hannah. Would you be interested in taking on that responsibility? Hannah nodded eagerly. I'd like that very much. As the meeting concluded, Olivia appeared in the doorway. Hannah, Michael would like to see you in his office when you have a moment. Hannah felt nervous as she rode the elevator to the executive floor. She wondered if there were additional expectations or conditions for her employment that hadn't been discussed yet. Michael's office was spacious but not ostentatious, with a large desk, comfortable seating area, and walls lined with books and family photographs. He looked up from his computer as she entered, his face lighting up with a genuine smile. Hannah, how was your first day? It was great. Everyone has been very welcoming, and the work seems exactly like what I hope to be doing. Rachel tells me you volunteered to coordinate the medical aspects of the health fair. That's exactly the kind of initiative I hope to see from you. Hannah sat in the chair across from his desk. The project sounds important. I grew up in a neighborhood like the one we're trying to serve. I know how hard it can be to get basic health care when you don't have insurance or transportation. Michael leaned back in his chair, impressed by her insight. That's why your perspective is so valuable. We can provide funding and volunteers, but we need someone who understands the community to make sure we're actually helping. I want to do a good job, Hannah said. This opportunity means everything to me and my grandmother. You're already doing a good job just by being yourself. Don't try to become someone different just because you work here now. As they talked, Hannah began to relax. Michael seemed genuinely interested in her ideas and opinions, treating her as a valued team member rather than someone who owed him gratitude. I have a confession to make, Michael said. I've been wanting to get more personally involved in our community programs, but I never knew where to start. Would you mind if I volunteered at the health fair? I could help with registration or whatever you need. Amar was surprised by the request. You want to volunteer at our event? I spend too much time in boardrooms and not enough time with the people our company is supposed to serve. This might be a good way to start changing that. We can always use more volunteers, but are you sure you're up for it? It's only been a few weeks since your heart attack. Michael appreciated her concern. Dr. Coleman cleared me for normal activities, and she thinks community involvement might actually be good for my recovery. Less stress, more meaningful work. Over the following weeks, Hannah threw herself into planning the health fair. She contacted local clinics to recruit volunteer nurses and doctors, arranged for medical equipment donations, and designed health education materials that would be accessible to people with limited English skills or low literacy levels. Michael stopped by her desk regularly to check on her progress and offer support. He was impressed by her thoroughness and creativity in solving logistical challenges. She had a natural ability to anticipate problems and develop practical solutions. How did you learn to be so organized? He asked one afternoon, as she showed him her detailed planning spreadsheets. When you're managing multiple jobs and taking care of someone else, you have to be organized or everything falls apart, she replied. Michael realized that this young woman had been developing executive-level skills through necessity long before she had an executive-level job. Her life experiences had taught her things that business school couldn't provide. As the health fair approached, Hannah worked longer hours to ensure every detail was perfect. She stayed late reviewing supply lists and confirming volunteer schedules, determined to prove herself worthy of the trust Michael had placed in her. One evening, as she was preparing to leave the office around 8, she found Michael waiting by the elevator. "Working late again?" he asked. "Just making sure everything is ready for Saturday." "You know, there's something I wanted to tell you," Michael said as they rode down together. "Hiring you. You was one of the best decisions I've made in years. Not just because I wanted to thank you, but because you're genuinely talented at this work." Hannah felt a warm glow of pride and accomplishment. For the first time since accepting the job, she began to believe that she truly belonged here. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means a lot coming from you." As they walked out of the building together into the cool evening air, neither of them noticed how natural it felt to spend time together, or how much they had both begun to look forward to their daily conversations. The health fair was held in the community center of the Riverside neighborhood, an area where many families struggled with poverty and limited access to health care. Hannah arrived early Saturday morning to oversee the setup, her clipboard in hand, and her mind focused on the dozens of details that needed to come together perfectly. Michael appeared shortly after she did, dressed in casual clothes and ready to work. Hannah had to admit she was impressed that he had actually shown up, and even more impressed when he immediately started helping volunteers arrange tables and hang banners without being asked. "Where do you want me?" he asked, approaching her with a smile. "Registration table. she replied, handing him a stack of forms and a box of name tags. Every person who comes in needs to fill out basic information and get one of these stickers indicating which services they want. For the next 6 hours, Michael worked alongside volunteers from the community, many of whom had no idea who he was. He checked people in, helped elderly residents fill out forms, and even entertained children while their parents waited for screenings. Hannah moved throughout the event, coordinating between different stations and solving problems as they arose. She had prepared for almost every contingency, and the day flowed smoothly from start to finish. Over 200 people received free health services, many for the first time in years. During a brief break, Rachel approached Hannah with obvious pride. "This is the most successful health fair we've ever organized. The feedback from the community has been overwhelmingly positive. Everyone worked really hard to make it happen," Hannah replied, deflecting the praise. "Don't be modest. You coordinated this entire event, and it shows. The attention to detail, the cultural sensitivity, the efficiency of the whole operation, it's professional level work." As the day ended and volunteers began cleaning up, Michael found Hannah stacking chairs in the main room. She looked tired but satisfied, her hair slightly disheveled from the long day, but her eyes bright with accomplishment. "So," he said, helping her with the chairs, "how do you think it went?" "Better than I hoped. We helped a lot of people today." "You helped a lot of people today. This was your vision and your planning that made it work." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the easy rhythm of shared labor, creating a sense of partnership between them. When the last chair was stacked, they stood in the empty community center, both feeling the satisfaction of a job well done. "I have an idea," Michael said. "There's a little restaurant not far from here that I've heard makes great soul food. Would you like to get dinner and celebrate what we accomplished today?" Hannah hesitated. Having dinner together felt different from working together, more personal somehow. But she was hungry, and she had to admit she enjoyed Michael's company. "Okay," she said, "but I'm buying. It's my neighborhood, my event." Michael smiled. "Deal." The restaurant was small and crowded with checkered tablecloths and the smell of home-cooked meals filling the air. They found a corner table and ordered fried chicken, mac and cheese, and collard greens from a waitress who clearly knew Hannah. "So this is where you grew up?" Michael asked, looking around at the comfortable, lived-in atmosphere, 3 blocks from here. "My grandmother still lives in the same apartment she moved into 40 years ago." "What was it like?" Hannah considered the question. "Hard sometimes, but good. People looked out for each other. When my parents died in a car accident when I was 8, the whole neighborhood helped my grandmother raise me. Mrs. Patterson next door taught me to cook. Mr. Johnson across the hall helped me with math homework. It takes a village, you know." Michael listened carefully, recognizing how different her childhood had been from his own privileged upbringing in exclusive suburbs and private schools. "It sounds like you had something I never experienced. A real community." "What was your childhood like?" "Lonely, mostly. Big house, private tutors, parents who were always working or traveling. I had every material advantage, but not much genuine connection with other people." "Is that why you never married?" Hannah asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. "Sorry, that's none of my business." "No, it's okay. I came close once in my 30s, but she was more interested in my money than in me. It made me cautious about relationships." The conversation continued over dinner, each of them sharing stories and perspectives that revealed more about who they were beneath their professional roles. Hannah talked about her dreams of becoming a nurse and her fears about her grandmother's declining health. Michael shared his struggles with feeling isolated despite his success and his desire to use his wealth for meaningful purposes. "Can I ask you something?" Hannah said as they finished their meal. "Why did you really offer me this job? And please don't say it was just gratitude." Michael was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "You reminded me of something I had forgotten about myself. When I started my company, it was because I wanted to create something that would help people. But somewhere along the way, I got caught up in profits and market share and lost sight of the original purpose. And seeing me break your car window reminded you of that. Seeing you risk your safety to help a stranger reminded me what real courage and compassion look like. I realized I wanted to be around people who still had those qualities. As they left the restaurant, Michael insisted on walking Hannah to her car despite her protests that the neighborhood was perfectly safe. The evening air was cool and pleasant, and they walked slowly, neither eager to end the conversation. "Would you like to have dinner again sometime?" Michael asked as they reached her car. "Not to celebrate work achievements, just because I enjoy talking with you." Hannah felt a flutter of nervousness and excitement. She was attracted to Michael, but she was also aware of the huge differences in their backgrounds and circumstances. Dating her boss seemed complicated and potentially risky. "I'd like that," she said finally, "but let's take things slowly." "Slowly is perfect," Michael agreed. Over the following weeks, they began spending more time together outside of work. Michael introduced Hannah to art galleries and classical music concerts she had never had the opportunity to experience. In return, she showed him parts of the city he had never seen, taking him to community festivals and local businesses that weren't listed in any guidebooks. Their colleagues began to notice the growing friendship between them, but both Michael and Hannah were careful to maintain professional boundaries during work hours. They collaborated effectively on new community programs, with Hannah's insights helping to design initiatives that truly serve their intended populations. "You're different lately," Rachel commented to Hannah one afternoon. "Happier, more confident." "Got it. Let me know if you'd like to dive deeper into any part of that." It sounds like Hannah and Michael's story is about to get complicated. Michael had proposed increasing funding for health programs based on the success of Hannah's initiatives, but several board members expressed skepticism about the return on investment. "We're a technology company, not a healthcare charity," William said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been making business decisions for decades. "These programs might make us feel good, but they don't contribute to our bottom line." Michael defended the programs vigorously, explaining how community engagement enhanced the company's reputation and attracted top talent who wanted to work for a socially responsible organization. But he could see doubt in the faces around the conference table. After the meeting, William approached Michael privately. "I've heard rumors that you're personally involved with the young woman who runs these programs. Please tell me that's not influencing your judgment about company resources." "Hannah is an excellent employee who has exceeded every expectation," Michael replied firmly. "Her personal relationship with me has nothing to do with her professional performance." "So, there is a personal relationship." Michael realized he had revealed more than he intended. "That's not relevant to this discussion." "It's absolutely relevant. You're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on programs designed by someone you're romantically involved with. How does that look to investors and shareholders?" The conversation troubled Michael more than he wanted to admit. He had always prided himself on making business decisions based on merit and results, not personal feelings. But he also couldn't deny that his growing love for Hannah made him want to support her work even more enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Hannah was facing her own challenges in the office. Some of her colleagues had begun to treat her differently, with a subtle coolness that suggested they suspected her rapid advancement had more to do with her relationship with the CEO than her abilities. "Must be nice to have connections at the top," commented Jacob Peterson, another community outreach coordinator, as they worked on a volunteer scheduling spreadsheet together. "What's that supposed to mean?" Hannah asked. "Come on, Hannah. Everyone knows you and Michael are close. No one gets promoted from messenger to program coordinator in 6 months without some kind of inside track." The accusation stung because Hannah had worked hard to prove herself worthy of her position. She had put in long hours, developed innovative programs, and achieved measurable results. But she couldn't deny that her relationship with Michael had created the appearance of favoritism. That evening, she talked to Michael about the tension she was experiencing at work. They were having dinner at his apartment, a weekly tradition that had developed as their relationship deepened. "People are starting to question whether I earned my position or just got it because we're dating," she said. Michael set down his fork, his expression serious. "What people are saying, this doesn't matter who. The point is that our relationship is affecting how others see my work. Anyone who looks at your results objectively knows you've earned every opportunity you've received. But they're not looking objectively anymore. They're looking through the lens of our personal relationship. Michael reached across the table and took her hand. Are you having second thoughts about us? Hannah hesitated. She loved Michael deeply, but she also valued her professional integrity and independence. I don't want to be known as the woman who slept her way to success. That's not what happened. And anyone who suggests otherwise is wrong. I know that, and you know that, but perception matters, especially in a workplace. Got it. If you'd like to discuss more about the situation or dive into anything else related to it, feel free to let me know. The board is going to be asking questions, and there will be scrutiny of every decision Michael makes regarding your employment or your programs. What are you saying? I'm saying you might want to consider whether this relationship is worth the professional risks you're both taking. That afternoon, Hannah found herself questioning everything she had built over the past several months. She loved her job and believed in the work she was doing. But she also loved Michael and couldn't imagine giving up their relationship. She was still wrestling with these thoughts when Michael appeared at her desk just before closing time. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. They went to his office and closed the door. Michael looked tired and stressed, his usual confident demeanor replaced by uncertainty. "The board wants to meet with me tomorrow to discuss the article," he said. "They're concerned about potential conflicts of interest and the company's reputation. What are you going to tell them?" "The truth that our relationship is personal and has never influenced my professional decisions about you or your programs." "But will they believe that?" Michael was quiet for a moment. "I don't know." Hannah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Maybe we should step back from each other for a while until this controversy dies down. Is that what you want?" "No," she said honestly. "But I don't want to be the reason you lose credibility with your board or the reason people question the value of community programs." Michael joined her at the window. "The board meeting tomorrow will determine what happens next. Let's wait and see what they say before we make any decisions about our relationship." That night, both of them lay awake in their separate homes, wondering if their love was strong enough to survive the pressures that threatened to tear them apart. They had found something precious in each other, but the world seemed determined to convince them that people from different backgrounds couldn't build a life together. The next morning would bring answers, but neither of them was sure they were ready to hear them. The boardroom at Whitmore Industries was unusually tense as Michael faced the 12 members of the board of directors. William Sterling led the questioning, his tone formal and prosecutorial. "Michael, we need to discuss the implications of your personal relationship with Miss Johnson," William began. "The company's reputation is being questioned, and some of our major investors are expressing concerns." "What specific concerns?" Michael asked, keeping his voice steady. "That personal relationships are influencing corporate decisions, that charitable programs are being funded based on romantic involvement rather than business merit." Board member Sarah Hoffman leaned forward. "We've reviewed the budget increases for community outreach over the past 6 months. The spending has nearly doubled since Miss Johnson joined the company." "And the results have more than doubled," Michael replied. "We've served 3 times as many people, received extensive positive media coverage, and improved our employee satisfaction ratings significantly." "But at what cost?" William interjected. "And how do we know these results would have been achieved if Miss Johnson weren't personally involved with you?" Michael had prepared for this question, but it still frustrated him because every program she's developed has clear metrics and measurable outcomes. Her work speaks for itself. "Nevertheless," said board member Daniel Crawford, "the appearance of impropriety is damaging our reputation. Some of our largest corporate clients are questioning whether they want to do business with a company that appears to make decisions based on personal relationships." The meeting continued for over an hour, with Michael defending both Hannah's qualifications and his own professional integrity, But he could see that several board members remained skeptical about his ability to separate personal feelings from business decisions. Finally, William presented the board's recommendation. We think it would be best if Miss Johnson were transferred to another department, away from community outreach and away from your direct oversight. This would remove any appearance of conflict of interest. Absolutely not, Michael said firmly. Hannah has built those programs from the ground up. Moving her would be devastating to the communities we serve and unfair to someone who has done exceptional work. Then perhaps you should reconsider the personal relationship, Hoffman suggested. Michael stood up, his patience finally exhausted. I will not allow this board to dictate my personal life or to punish an excellent employee because of her relationship with me. Hannah Johnson has earned every opportunity she's received through hard work and proven results. Michael, Williams said in a warning tone, you need to consider what's best for the company. I am considering what's best for the company. And what's best is keeping talented people who share our values and deliver results. The meeting ended without resolution, with the board agreeing to table the discussion for a week while they considered their options. Michael left the conference room knowing that his relationship with Hannah had become a major issue that threatened both her career and his leadership position. Meanwhile, Hannah spent the day trying to focus on her work while dealing with the stares and whispers of colleagues who had read the newspaper article. Some people were supportive, but others clearly questioned her motives and qualifications. During lunch, she sat alone in the company cafeteria, picking at a salad she didn't really want. She was lost in thought when Rachel approached with her own lunch tray. Mind if I join you? Rachel asked. Of course not. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Rachel spoke. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday about the challenges you're facing because of your relationship with Michael. I know what you're going to say, that I should end it for the good of my career. Actually, that's not what I was going to say. Rachel paused, choosing her words carefully. I've worked in corporate environments for 25 years, and I've seen a lot of talented women sacrifice their personal happiness for professional advancement. Hannah looked up, surprised by this direction. I've also seen what you've accomplished in just 6 months, Rachel continued. The health fairs, the volunteer programs, the partnership with local clinics. These initiatives have changed lives, and they happen because of your vision and leadership. But people think I only got the opportunity because of Michael. Some people will always look for reasons to diminish a woman's achievements, especially a young Black woman in a predominantly white corporate environment. You can't let their prejudices define your worth. So, what are you saying? I'm saying that if you love Michael and he loves you, don't let other people's opinions destroy something real. But also, don't let anyone convince you that you haven't earned your place here through your own merit. That afternoon, Hannah made a decision. She requested a meeting with the Human Resources Director to discuss the situation directly. She wanted to address the concerns about her relationship with Michael head-on, rather than allowing rumors and speculation to continue. HR Director Michael Chen listened carefully as Hannah explained her perspective on the situation. She acknowledged that her relationship with Michael created the appearance of a conflict of interest, but insisted that her work performance should be evaluated on its own merits. I understand why people have questions, she said, but I've documented every program I've developed, every result I've achieved, and every decision I've made. My work can be reviewed objectively by anyone. What would you recommend as a solution? Chin asked. Independent evaluation of my programs by an outside consultant. If the results don't justify the investment, I'll accept reassignment or termination. But if they do, I hope the company will judge me based on performance rather than personal relationships. Chin was impressed by her directness and professionalism. I'll discuss your proposal with the board. That evening, Michael appeared at Hannah's apartment, looking exhausted from his day of meetings and political maneuvering. She made him coffee, and they sat together on her small couch, both feeling the weight of the decisions they faced. How did the board meeting go? She asked. They want you transferred to another department, or they want us to end our relationship. Hannah nodded. She had expected as much. And what did you tell them? That I won't sacrifice either you or our relationship to satisfy their concerns. Hannah, you can't risk your position as CEO because of me. My position isn't worth having if it means I can't make decisions based on merit and results. They held each other in the quiet of her apartment, both understanding that the coming days would test their resolve and their love in ways they had never anticipated. I talked to HR today, Hannah said. I suggested an independent evaluation of my programs. If they prove their worth objectively, maybe the board will back down. That's a good idea. Your work can withstand any scrutiny, and if it can't, then we'll face whatever comes next together. Outside, the city lights twinkled in the darkness, and inside, two people who had found love against the odds, prepared to fight for their right to build a future together. Grace Johnson sat in her favorite armchair, watching her granddaughter pace anxiously around their small living room. Hannah had been agitated for days, ever since the newspaper article had made her relationship with Michael public knowledge and complicated her professional life. "Child, you're going to wear a hole in that carpet," Grace said gently. Hannah stopped pacing and looked at her grandmother. At 78, Grace still possessed the sharp wisdom that had guided Hannah through every major decision in her life. Her health had been declining over the past year, but her mind remained clear and her advice always worth hearing. "I don't know what to do, Grandma. I love Michael, but this situation is affecting everything. My job, my reputation, people I work with. Sit down here beside me." Grace patted the arm of her chair. "Let's talk about this properly." Hannah settled on the floor next to her grandmother's chair, resting her head against the familiar comfort of Grace's knee. It was a position that reminded both of them of countless conversations throughout Hannah's childhood and adolescence. "Tell me about this man," Grace said. "Not about his money or his company. Tell me about who he is when it's just the two of you." Hannah considered the question carefully. "He's kind, Grandma. Really kind. Not just polite. He listens when I talk, and he remembers things that matter to me. He asks about you all the time and genuinely cares about your health. What else? He's been alone for most of his life, but he's not bitter about it. He wants to use his success to help people, but he never had anyone to show him how. When we work together on programs for the community, he gets excited like a little kid learning something new." Grace nodded thoughtfully. "And how does he treat you when other people are around?" "With respect. He never talks down to me or makes me feel like I'm not smart enough to be in the room. Even when we disagree about something, he values my opinion." "Does he try to change you?" "No. If anything, he encourages me to be more confident about my ideas and abilities." Grace was quiet for several minutes, her weathered hands gently stroking Hannah's hair. She was thinking about her own experiences with love and loss, and about the hard-won wisdom that came from nearly 8 decades of life. "Baby, let me tell you something about love," she said finally. "Real love is rare. Most people go their whole lives without finding someone who truly sees them and accepts them completely. When you find that kind of love, you don't let other people's fears and prejudices chase it away. But what about my career? What about the work I want to do? What about it? You think you can't help people and love someone at the same time? It's not that simple, Grandma. People are saying I only got my job because of Michael." Grace's eyes flashed with sudden fire. "And what do you say?" "I say I earned my position through hard work and results." "Then why are you letting other people's ignorance make you doubt yourself?" Hannah looked up at her grandmother, surprised by the strength in her voice. "Child, I lived through segregation and integration, through times when black women couldn't get jobs no matter how qualified they were. I watched your grandfather struggle to provide for his family despite having more skill and intelligence than the white men who got promoted ahead of him." Grace leaned forward, her voice becoming more intense. "You think I don't know what it's like to have people question whether you deserve what you've achieved? You think I don't understand how it feels to have your accomplishments minimized because of who you are? Of course you do. I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." "Listen to me carefully. You have something that generations of women in our family never had. You have education, opportunity, and a chance to make a real difference in the world. Don't you dare let anyone make you feel ashamed of success just because you also found love." Hannah felt tears welling up in her eyes. Her grandmother's words carried the weight of family history and hard-won wisdom. But what if I lose everything? What if you gain everything? What if this man loves you enough to stand beside you against the world? What if together you can do more good than either of you could do alone? You really think I should stay with him? Grace smiled, her expression softening. I think you should bring him here so I can meet him properly. If he wants to be part of this family, he needs to sit at my kitchen table and let me look him in the eye. The next evening, Hannah called Michael and invited him to dinner at her grandmother's apartment. He accepted immediately, though she could hear the nervousness in his voice. He understood that Grace's approval was important to Hannah, and he wanted desperately to make a good impression. Michael arrived with flowers for Grace and a homemade apple pie from a bakery he had researched carefully. He wore casual clothes and a humble expression, clearly understanding that this was Grace's domain, and he was a guest seeking acceptance. So, you're the man who's been keeping my granddaughter up at night worrying, Grace said as she led him into the apartment. I hope I can help put some of those worries to rest, Michael replied. Dinner was simple but delicious. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and cornbread that Grace had made from scratch despite her arthritis. Michael ate with obvious appreciation and complimented the cooking without seeming patronizing. Hannah tells me you had a heart attack, Grace said during the main course. Yes, ma'am, the serious one. Your granddaughter saved my life. She's always been one to help people in trouble. Sometimes I worry she cares more about other people than she does about herself. Michael glanced at Hannah, understanding the subtle message in Grace's words. I care about her happiness and her success. I never want to be the reason she doesn't achieve her dreams. And what are those dreams in your opinion? To help people, especially people who don't have access to good health care, to use her nursing skills and her understanding of community needs to make a real difference in people's lives. Grace nodded approvingly. That's right. And how do you fit into those dreams? Michael set down his fork and looked directly at Grace. I hope to support them in every way I can to provide resources and opportunities, but also to learn from her about what it means to serve others. After dinner, while Hannah washed dishes, Grace asked Michael to sit with her in the living room. She wanted to speak with him privately, and he sensed this was the real test of the evening. That girl is the most precious thing in my life, Grace said without preamble. I raised her from the time she was 8 years old, and I've watched her overcome obstacles that would have broken most people. I can see how much you love her. Do you love her? Yes, ma'am. More than I've ever loved anyone. Enough to protect her from people who want to hurt her because of who you are. Michael met her steady gaze. I'm trying to learn how to do that. I've never had to deal with this kind of situation before. Rich white men usually don't, Grace said dryly. You're right. I've been privileged my entire life, but I'm beginning to understand what Hannah faces because of our relationship, and I want to be strong enough to stand with her. Grace studied his face for a long moment. You seem like a good man, Michael, but good intentions aren't enough. If you're going to be with my granddaughter, you need to understand that her world is different from yours. People will judge her more harshly, expect more from her, and give her less credit for her achievements. I'm learning that. Are you willing to fight for her? Really fight, even if it costs you something? Yes, even if it cost me everything. Michael didn't hesitate. Yes. Grace smiled for the first time that evening. Then you might just be worthy of her. When Hannah returned from the kitchen, she found her grandmother and Michael deep in conversation about community health programs and the importance of cultural sensitivity in healthcare delivery. Michael was listening intently to Grace's stories about neighborhood health challenges, taking mental notes about approaches Amar's programs might incorporate. As the evening ended, Grace hugged Michael goodbye with genuine warmth. You come back soon, she told him, and next time I'll make my famous sweet potato pie. Walking to his car, Michael felt a sense of acceptance and belonging he had never experienced before. Grace had welcomed him into their family, but she had also made clear her expectations for how he would treat and protect Hannah. She likes you, Hannah said as they stood beside his car. I like her too. She's remarkable. She also gave you her blessing, didn't she? Michael smiled. She told me I might be worthy of you. That's probably the highest compliment I've ever received. As he drove home, Michael felt a new sense of clarity about their relationship and their future. Grace's wisdom had helped him understand that love wasn't just about feeling good together. It was about being willing to face the world together, especially when the world wasn't always welcoming. The next morning, he would make a decision that would change everything. Michael arrived at the office early Monday morning with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. The weekend conversations with Grace had clarified his priorities and strengthened his resolve. He was done allowing other people's fears and prejudices to dictate his personal life or his professional decisions. His first call was to Olivia, asking her to schedule an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. His second call was to Michael Chin in Human Resources, requesting the preliminary results of the independent evaluation of Hannah's community programs. The outside consultant finished her review on Friday. Chin reported, "The results are impressive. Miss Johnson's programs have served over 1,500 people in 6 months with measurably improved health outcomes and extremely positive community feedback. The cost per person served is actually lower than industry standards for similar programs." "Send me the full report," Michael said. "I want every detail." By noon, Michael had reviewed the consultant's findings and prepared for what he knew would be the most important board meeting of his career. The data supported everything he had believed about Hannah's work. She had designed and implemented programs that were both effective and efficient, achieving remarkable results with limited resources. The board meeting began with the same tense atmosphere that had characterized their previous discussion. William Sterling opened with renewed concerns about the company's reputation and the need to address the conflict of interest situation decisively. "We've received calls from 3 major clients expressing discomfort with the current situation," William announced. "They're questioning whether Whitmore Industries can be trusted to make objective business decisions." Michael listened patiently to each board member's concerns before responding. When they finished, he stood and distributed copies of the independent evaluation report. "Before we make any decisions about Miss Johnson's employment or my personal life, I want you to review objective data about her professional performance." The board members read through the report in silence. The consultant's findings were unequivocal. Amar's programs were exceptionally well designed and highly effective, delivering measurable value to both the communities served and the company's reputation. "These results are impressive," admitted Sarah Hoffman. "But they don't address the perception problem." "Then let's address the perception problem directly," Michael said. "I'm proposing that we be completely transparent about Ms. Johnson's qualifications and achievements. Instead of hiding from questions about our relationship, let's demonstrate why she earned her position through merit." "What do you mean by transparent?" asked Daniel Crawford. "I mean we showcase her work publicly. We invite media coverage of her programs, we submit her initiatives for industry awards, and we let her results speak for themselves." William frowned. That could backfire. More media attention might amplify the controversy. "Or it might show the world what I already know, that Hannah Johnson is one of the most talented people this company has ever employed." Michael paused, looking around the table at each board member. "I'm also announcing that Miss Johnson and I are engaged to be married." The room fell silent. Several board members exchanged glances, clearly surprised by this development. "We're not hiding our relationship anymore," Michael continued. "We're not allowing speculation and rumors to define us. We're 2 people who fell in love while working together, and we're going to build a life together based on shared values and mutual respect." "Michael," William said slowly, "are you sure this is wise? Making such a public commitment at this time could intensify the scrutiny." "I'm tired of making decisions based on fear of scrutiny. Hannah and I are getting married because we love each other and because we believe we can do more good together than apart." Board member Sophia Martinez, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. "I've reviewed Miss Johnson's work, and it's exemplary. I've also watched this company struggle to find authentic ways to connect with diverse communities. Maybe instead of seeing this relationship as a liability, we should see it as an asset. How so? Crawford asked. Authenticity matters to consumers and employees, especially younger demographics. A CEO who marries someone from the community he's trying to serve, someone who understands those needs firsthand, could actually strengthen our brand. The discussion continued for another hour, with the board gradually moving toward acceptance of the situation. The independent evaluation had provided objective validation of Amar's qualifications, and Michael's willingness to make their relationship official demonstrated his commitment to transparency. Finally, William called for a vote of confidence in Michael's leadership. The result was 10 votes in favor, 2 abstentions, and no votes against. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough to give Michael the support he needed to move forward. After the meeting, Michael drove directly to Hannah's apartment. She was waiting for him, having spent the day anxiously wondering about the outcome of the board meeting. He found her sitting on her small balcony, looking out at the city skyline. "How did it go?" she asked as he joined her outside. "Better than I hoped." He sat beside her and took her hands in his. "The independent evaluation of your programs was overwhelmingly positive. The board voted to continue supporting your work." Hannah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "And us? I told them we're getting married." "You what?" Hannah stared at him in shock. Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I told them we're getting married because I'm hoping you'll say yes to this." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but understated diamond ring. It wasn't ostentatious or flashy, but it was elegant and clearly chosen with care. "Hannah Johnson, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me based on love and shared purpose? Will you help me become the kind of man who deserves someone as extraordinary as you?" Tears welled up in Hannah's eyes as she looked at the ring and then at Michael's hopeful face. "Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we're married, there's no hiding from who we are or what we mean to each other." "I'm absolutely sure. I love you, and I want the whole world to know it." "Then, yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you." Michael slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun set over the city where they had first met. In that moment, all the challenges and uncertainties of the past few months seemed manageable compared to the strength of what they had built together. "I want to call Grandma," Hannah said, admiring the ring on her finger. "She already knows," Michael admitted. "I asked her permission yesterday before she gave me her blessing." "You asked my grandmother for permission to marry me. I asked for her blessing." "There's a difference. I know you make your own decisions, but her approval matters to you, so it matters to me." Hannah kissed him again, overwhelmed by how well he understood her and her family. What did she say? She said it was about time. They spent the evening making calls to share their news. Olivia was thrilled. Rachel was delighted, and even some of the colleagues who had been skeptical about their relationship offered congratulations and support. As they lay together that night in Hannah's small bed, talking about their future and their dreams, both of them felt a sense of peace they hadn't experienced in months. They had faced the challenges of their different backgrounds and survived. They had weathered criticism and doubt. Now, they were ready to build something beautiful together. "I have one condition for our marriage," Hannah said sleepily. "Anything. I want to keep working. I want to expand the community programs and maybe start that nursing degree again part-time. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I want us to live modestly, not in poverty, but not in a mansion either. I want to remember where we came from. Deal. As long as we have room for your grandmother when she's ready to move in with us." Hannah smiled in the darkness. "I love you, Michael Whitmore." "I love you too, future Mrs. Whitmore." Outside their window, the city hummed with life and possibility. And inside, two people who had found love across different worlds planned a future that would honor both their dreams and their values. 6 months later, on a perfect spring morning, Hannah stood in the bridal preparation room of the community center, where she and Michael had organized their first health fair together. It seemed fitting that they would begin their married life in the same place where they had discovered their shared commitment to serving others. The wedding dress she wore was elegant but simple, chosen with Grace's help and paid for with Hannah's own money, despite Michael's offers to cover all the wedding expenses. She had wanted to contribute equally to their special day, maintaining the independence and self-reliance that had attracted Michael to her in the first place. "You look beautiful, baby," Grace said, adjusting the simple pearl necklace that had belonged to Hannah's mother. At 79, Grace had rallied her strength for this important day, determined to see her granddaughter married to the man who had won both their hearts. "Are you sure about this dress, Grandma?" "It's not too plain, child. You could wear a paper bag, and that man would think you're the most beautiful woman in the world. The dress is perfect because it's you." Through the window, they could see guests arriving for the outdoor ceremony. Michael had wanted a large, elaborate wedding at the country club where his family had celebrated important occasions for generations. But Hannah had preferred something smaller and more meaningful, surrounded by the community that had shaped her life. The guest list reflected their compromise: family and close friends from both their worlds, along with colleagues from Whitmore Industries and neighbors from Amar's childhood community. Rachel was there with her husband, beaming with pride at her protege as happiness. Olivia had flown in from her vacation to serve as Michael's unofficial wedding coordinator. Even some of the people they had helped through community programs had come to celebrate with them. Dr. Coleman, Michael's cardiologist, sat in the front row with a satisfied smile. She had watched her patient transform from a stressed, isolated executive into a man whose improved health reflected his improved happiness. The heart attack that had brought Hannah and Michael together had ultimately saved more than just his life. "It's time," said Pastor Williams from the neighborhood church where Grace had worshiped for 40 years. He would be performing the ceremony, another choice that honored Hannah's roots while welcoming Michael into her community. Hannah walked down the simple aisle between rows of folding chairs, her arm linked with Peter Rodriguez from the courier service, who had offered to escort her when he learned she had no father to fill that role. The gesture had moved both Hannah and Michael deeply, representing the kind of chosen family that had sustained Hannah throughout her life. Michael waited at the altar in a navy suit, his face glowing with joy as he watched his bride approach. Beside him stood his best man, Michael Chen from Human Resources, who had become a close friend during the months of navigating workplace challenges together. The ceremony was brief but meaningful, with vows that Hannah and Michael had written themselves. They promised to support each other's dreams, to face challenges together, and to use their combined resources and talents to help others whenever possible. "You may kiss the bride," Pastor Williams announced, and Michael did so with tender joy while their guests erupted in applause and cheers. The reception was held in the same community center, decorated simply with flowers from local gardens and tables laden with food prepared by neighborhood cooks who had insisted on contributing to the celebration. It was exactly the kind of authentic community-centered event that reflected their values and their love. During the dinner, Michael stood to make a toast that surprised even Hannah with its heartfelt eloquence. 8 months ago, I thought success meant profit margins and market share. He began. I was wrong. Success means finding someone who makes you want to be better than you ever imagined you could be. It means building something together that matters more than anything you could build alone. He looked directly at Hannah, his voice growing stronger. My wife taught me that courage isn't about making bold business decisions in boardrooms. It's about breaking car windows to save strangers. It's about choosing hope over fear and love over safety. The applause was enthusiastic and genuine, coming from people who had watched their relationship develop and had seen how they brought out the best in each other. As the evening progressed, Hannah and Michael moved among their guests and thanking everyone for sharing their special day. They were particularly touched when several board members from Whitmore Industries approached them to offer not just congratulations, but genuine apologies for the skepticism they had initially faced. "We were wrong to question your relationship," Sarah Hoffman told them. "Watching you work together over these past months, seeing the results you've achieved, it's clear that you make each other stronger." William Sterling, who had been Michael's most vocal critic, surprised everyone by presenting them with a wedding gift. A check made out to the Whitmore Johnson Foundation, the charitable organization they plan to establish together. Consider this seed money for whatever good work you want to do together, he said with a rare smile. The biggest surprise of the evening came when Rachel approached the microphone to make an announcement. "I have news that I couldn't wait to share," she said, grinning at the newlyweds. The community health programs that Hannah designed have been nominated for the National Excellence in Community Service Award. The ceremony is next month in Washington, D.C. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Hannah felt overwhelmed by the recognition, not just for herself, but for the validation it provided for all the work they had done together. As the evening wound down, Hannah and Michael found themselves alone for a few minutes on the small balcony outside the community center. The city sparkled below them, and they could hear the sounds of their guests continuing to celebrate inside. "No regrets?" Michael asked, taking his wife's hands in his. "None?" Hannah replied, "This is exactly what I wanted, all of it. Even the part where you're married to a reformed corporate executive who still has a lot to learn about community service." "Especially that part," he said. "I like the idea of spending the rest of my life teaching you things," she teased. They kissed under the stars, surrounded by the sounds of family and friends celebrating their love. In the months ahead, they would face new challenges as they built their life together and expanded their charitable work. There would be times when their different backgrounds created misunderstandings, and moments when the demands of running both a business and a foundation would strain their patience. But they would face all of it together, supported by the love they had found in each other and the community they had built around them. Michael's near-death experience had brought them together, but their shared values and commitment to service would keep them together. 6 months after the wedding, the Whitmore Johnson Foundation had established health clinics in 3 underserved neighborhoods. Hannah had returned to school part-time to complete her nursing degree while continuing to oversee community programs that now served over 5,000 people annually. Michael had restructured Whitmore Industries to prioritize social responsibility alongside profitability, making the company a model for ethical business practices in the technology sector. The changes had actually improved the company's financial performance, attracting top talent and loyal customers who valued authentic corporate citizenship. Grace had moved into the guest house on the modest property they had purchased together, staying close to her granddaughter while maintaining her independence. Her health had stabilized with access to better medical care, and she had become Michael's unofficial advisor on community relations and cultural sensitivity. One evening, as they sat together reviewing applications for foundation grants, Hannah looked up at her husband with a content smile. "Do you remember what you asked me that first day in your apartment about anyone helping you?" "I remember. I said anyone would have done the same thing. I was wrong." "How so?" "Not anyone would have done what you did afterward. Not everyone would have seen past their own gratitude to recognize what really mattered. You didn't just thank me for saving your life. You helped me build the life I wanted to live." Michael reached across their desk and took her hand, the simple gold wedding band catching the light. "We helped each other build the lives we wanted to live." Outside their window, the city continued its endless rhythm of challenge and opportunity, hope and struggle. But inside their home, 2 people who had found love across different worlds continued the work of making their community a little bit better, one person at a time. Their story had begun with a moment of crisis and a choice to help a stranger. It had grown into something neither of them could have imagined, a partnership that honored both their differences and their shared dreams, proving that love and service could transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. And in the end, that transformation was the greatest gift they could give to the world that had brought them together.